everything is going to change. In the process, we will change the factors that voters take into consideration.
And Joseph, I'd like you to react to that statement made by your party leader, Raila Odinga, with reference to those members of parliament who've already shown support for Deputy President William Ruto.
First of all, it's just to tell you that, tell our viewers that as an intellectual, I know very well that I don't need to exert myself intellectually to speak about the fact, and notice I'm using the word fact, that corruption is a big issue in our politics. It has money has corrupted our political system so much so that it's acknowledged by Jubilee, by NASA, by very many people who want to acknowledge that corruption is a problem in this country. But of course, there are no surprises when the beneficiaries of corruption defend it. When they defend corruption and say there's no negative effect of money in our political system, because they benefit from this, from the highest levels to the hustlers on the streets. I mean, that money trickles down to all manner of people, and they want to defend this, and there are no surprises at all. Secondly, with regards to the statement the party leader is mentioning, is making there, he's referring to those who imagine that because of a corrupt system that flashes what they see as immediate benefits in their face and they run for it, they must not mistake that for the end. That they are imagining, and we think they're imagining that this is already a done thing, that is already concluded, that those whom they want to associate with, we are the ones who will be in power now and will be in power beyond the next election, whenever that comes, whether it's 2022 or when any other year. And he's just telling them that, think again, because the nature of politics is changing. Part of the strategy of the party leader and the party as well is to completely shift the nature of politics in the country. And for those who are not very keen, they may not realize that we are engaging in a strategy to shift how we engage in politics so that we are not playing on a field whose boundaries and rules have been determined by those who are corrupt. That really is the warning that he's sending to
Yes. Now, Joseph,
people.
make me understand this. How different is, these members of parliament in question, as much as they're warming up or have already shown openly that they're supporting the deputy president, how is it different from, the handshake between the two principals, that is Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta?
You will remember, and I will encourage you probably now or after this to keep going back to the statement he read and his words to the media, to the press that was there, and therefore to the public, not just in Kenya but internationally. He kept making reference to himself and Kenyatta having come to an agreement that they both must work together to shift the way politics is done in this country. You will remember at that point, the two of them never mentioned their parties. That was not by coincidence. It was deliberate. What he asked of his party and his coalition is, can you give me some space? Then you will see what I would like to do. Give me some space. And eventually he came back and explained things that don't have to be discussed in public. How this is part of a strategy for shifting the way politics is done in this country so that the corrupt can be exposed. If you look, for example, at the statement that came out of today's parliamentary group and National Executive Committee meeting, you will notice that on one side, the party is saying that we are fully in support of the handshake, we are fully in support of the war on corruption, and immediately thereafter, the statement criticizes government and Uhuru Kenyatta for disregarding decisions from the judiciary, from courts of law, for the taxing the poor, for example, taxing transfer of money, taxing kerosene, and so on. What does that tell you? It's about strategies, focus on issues, not supporting Jubilee, but focus on issues where we can agree with those who are political competitors so that we can expose the worst of the worst in this system. So it's really part of our strategy.
Yes, and speaking about the handshake, Abel, since that handshake on March 9th, I believe, the Deputy President has been at the coast, which is predominant in opposition stronghold, for more than 5 times. That is since March 9th. Is this a coincidence, or once again, are you sharing the same observation with members of the opposition that the Deputy President is engaging in campaigns?
Well, I think as a realist, I don't want to think it's a coincidence. Of course, that is a calculated move. And I want to agree with Joseph that corruption is a problem. I don't think it's disputed by anyone. Corruption is a problem, and I think up to like 90% of the population in the country agrees that corruption is a problem. And when he talks about corruption, it's like one side is actually very clean, the other side is very dirty. So, you know, there's some kind of moral high ground for one side to point an accusing finger. Corruption cuts across. If you go to them, you'll find some of the sleaziest, the dirtiest guys, you know, hiding there. Same applies to Jubilee. So it's not, you know, the preserve of a single political party to come out and blame the other. It's a case of the cattle, you know, saying the pot is very black. It's ridiculous. And the deputy president was cautioned by the president himself, of course indirectly, to reduce campaigns. And it was done in a very friendly manner because they're from the same party. So I don't think it's Raila's place to actually begin criticizing the deputy president. When we talk about political observations, and of course in politics, perception is reality. Raila is perceived as a very old statesman, and he does not play in the same league as the deputy president. Every single day he criticizes the deputy president, he reduces himself. That is why no one expects Raila to actually be giving, you know, behaving like he wants to vie in 2022. All he has to do now is to let the states be occupied by newcomers, the likes of Gideon Moi, William Ruto, the likes of Musalia Mudavadi, and others. And, you know, there is a problem with what we call lack of acceptance of things as they are. ODM has a problem. If there was no problem, all these guys couldn't be exiting or pointing out that they're going to support Ruto in 2022. That is lack of satisfaction in their party. And
but of course, Joseph has already said that they've seen that coming. They're not surprised.
They could have stopped it.
Yes, but I'd like to hear this from Joseph. How's the atmosphere around ODM at the moment? Perhaps, if you don't mind, can you share with us what has been at the top of your agenda during your National Executive Council meeting?
Yeah, I've mentioned that, you know, the National Executive Council and as well as Parliamentary Group was discussing the recent budget statement, the state of affairs in the party, and also what is happening on the political scene, particularly with regards to the fight against corruption, what of course is in the public domain. So that is basically what the National Executive Council and the Parliamentary Group was discussing.
Nothing was mentioned about the rebel MPs?
No. What is mentioned is in general, not as part of the agenda of the meeting, because that meeting was scheduled before this happened, but yet at the time it's being scheduled, it was already known. What was not known is exactly at what time. And I do agree with you as he says that, you know, ODM could not satisfy those members of parliament and many other people. He is very right, it's a fact. ODM does not have the kind of influence that has made those people move. I have mentioned it here that corruption in the political system is influencing people to make the most weird decisions, but understandable. You can actually understand, especially when they're not people who are not of principle. And indeed, as a party, ODM doesn't have that kind of influence to satisfy them. So that is not disputable at all.
Yes, but Joseph, at the moment, these members of parliament in question have been elected through the ODM party to their respective, of course, to their respective seats. So what is ODM planning to do at the moment?
Well, it's yet to seize of that matter. That's the leadership is yet to seize of that matter. You know, there are options that the leadership can decide to invoke what the law says in terms of association with the cause of another political party. The leadership may decide not to do that. Normally, this is not new. It has happened before in a number of parties. And the leadership looks at the best interest of the party at the end of the day, not necessarily making decisions to punish those who have done that, but necessarily making decisions to ensure that it protects the interests of the party, particularly the image it sends to the party members and those who would be desirable that they join the party. So here I cannot second guess the leadership, but I do know that the leadership will sit and make a decision on exactly what to do. And it may well be that it could make a decision to invoke the law and kick out either 1, 2, 3, or all these members. Or it may make a different decision for strategic purposes. So really that I cannot second guess them at this time.
Yes. Now, Abel, there's some new developments. It seems there are a lot of problems going on with the ODM party. Of course, Joseph has allayed those fears. Amason Kingi, Kilifi governor, now is calling for a cost-political party to fill in a presidential candidate come 2022. Abel, from your point of view, how does the future of ODM look like?
Now, realistically speaking, I think ODM as a party now is on its deathbed. because as you realize, the support it had from Western Kenya is gone. The support it had from parts of Eastern is gone. And as you can see now, the guys from the coast have taken off. So ODM support is going to become actually very small. It's shrinking at a very high speed. And the statement by Kingi about the formation of a political party for the coast is a part of a wider strategy, of course, to take away ODM, coast members of parliament and the cost of support from ODM and put it somewhere in readiness to embrace someone else, who obviously, they've come out and told us in no uncertain terms. So I don't think they're going to have a presidential candidate, but they're going to consolidate their support and give it to someone else. So ODM is going to continue shrinking. We should, I think, expect that going forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Joseph, part of the statement by your party leader today, he did say this, quote unquote, what is good for Kenya is good for the opposition. He has also maintained that they're still in the opposition because there are fears that, Kenya does not have an opposition, especially after that handshake. Perhaps, can you tell us if ODM is still keen on challenging the government, especially in the war on corruption?
Let me first of all confess that there was a lot of confusion, arising from that handshake. I suppose all around, but I can say without fear of contradiction, even within ODM, you had people who thought that it means that in fact now there's a coalition, now ODM has gone into government, now this and that. But very quickly the party moved, and I remember the Secretary General issuing a statement to clarify that this is not about cooperation with Jubilee, this is not about working together in government, but this is about working on specific issues, focusing on specific issues, not looking for victims and so on, but looking for the truth on specific issues. So that has to be borne in mind, that that handshake indeed did create a bit of confusion around the country, and I think it's been clear now to many people that it did create confusion. So the party leadership has had to work extra, if you like, make extra effort to ensure that it keeps clarifying that focus on the issues. What is it that we are saying we need to offer cooperation and support for it to be fought because it's good for the country? So when you hear him say what is good for the country is good for the party, is about the larger problems of the nation as captured. Not all of them are captured, but partly captured in that statement, a 9-point statement. And one of them being the political problem that we have as a nation. That when you see anxiety about people saying a Coast presidential candidate, a Luya presidential candidate, I don't know which other presidential candidate and so on, is about anxiety. People still feeling that unless we have one of our own there, this system is exclusionist, is excluding us. Now, those are knee-jerk reactions that we've seen before. Mm-hmm. But we are saying that, look, that's not the solution. We agree on the problem, we totally agree. We understand the anxiety, but that's not the solution that each community in this country has to offer someone to be a presidential candidate, mm-hmm. so that they can feel safe that they are in government. That we have to deal with the bigger political problem, the bankruptcy of our political system, the corruption in our political system, the capture of the state, exclusionist politics, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Now, Joseph, you have already mentioned that you are not surprised, you are not shocked when these members of parliament in question left ODM party. And I've already mentioned that the deputy president has toured the coast for a record 5 times since that handshake on March 9th. Will you be surprised if, more members of parliament, leave the ODM party and join the deputy president's camp?
I already mentioned that it would not be a surprise at all. It's not just the cost.
So how are you going to deal with it as ODM?
This will, time will tell how the party is going to deal with it. So it's best to give time to see those who wish to be, if you like, seduced by the kind of considerations that some of these people are being seduced by. Let them make their moves, and it's good that they're making these moves this early before we get into dealing with the intractable problems of political problems of the country, even before we go into any other electoral contest. So this is not, it will not be a surprise at all if 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other people decide that they see the sweetness of the sugar that is being waved in their faces, not knowing that that sugar has mercury, that will poison their systems. That's all we can tell them, that look, it's nice to drink this sugar, but just remember, you may not know for now, but it has mercury.
Mm-hmm. Abel, let me give you the last word. And as much as ODM says things are fine in their political party, I'm sure Jubilee, from wherever they are, from wherever they're watching this development, they must be very happy.
Yeah, I think I like what Joseph has said. The strategy for DM is to do nothing. They'll just watch as those guys, take off to join whichever political party they wish. So that it takes us back to what I said. ODM is on its way, to extinction as a political party. It's going to shrink and become very small. Now, Jubilee on the other side, of course, is going to get more support. They'll be able to push the agenda in Parliament and in the Senate through very quickly. And most of the governors, of course, who are willing to shift their support to maybe Ruto will definitely support the Jubilee agenda, in a bigger way and in the long term. So, and at the end of the day, I think the person who gets credit is not even the deputy president, it is the president. I think he's been able to get so much from the handshake, which is very good for him. He's going, I think, to get the best ground to implement his agenda of the Big Four. So it's for him now to make sure he gets the budget along those lines and works. And of course, he has to now control the deputy president and Raila, who seem to be out there campaigning before we get even to half of his legacy term.
Joseph, I'm sure you'll want to react to that because I'm told that I have 1 minute more before
I just want to mention that I'm not surprised when he completely fails to understand me and he imagines that I said that ODM will do nothing. Again, I could say I'm not surprised. I said that the party that is not in a panic mode because this is not a surprise. What the party will do, it doesn't owe him or anyone to tell them what it will do other than for the leadership to explain, first beginning with the leadership, and eventually as it's executing its response, the rank and file of the party will get to know what the leadership has decided. But for now is to give space to those who want to run after these short-term incentives to do that so that we can get clarity on what is wheat and what is chaff, what is good for the party and what is not good for the party. And just finally, I said that it is good that is happening now before an electoral contest when we have time to see things in clarity that these are people who have ideological clarity and these ones are not. These are people who are transformational and these ones are transactional. So actually it's better and best, in fact, to have fewer people in the leadership of the party, members of parliament, MCAs, governors, and so on, but who believe in something that they can sacrifice for, than to have multitudes who believe in nothing but money, and especially ill-gotten money stolen from the public.
Of course, this is an interesting development. We're still going to keep a keen eye on for our viewers. Many thanks, Joseph, for your input. Of course, Joseph Simeha is an ODM strategist, as well as Abel Oyeyo is a political analyst. On the day, we've seen ODM top brass have a meeting there, National Executive Council meeting at the coastal city of Mombasa. And it's at that meeting that 4 members of parliament elected on an ODM ticket failed to turn up. The question is, what is ODM going to do with them? Of course, we're going to still be looking at this story as it develops. Many thanks for watching. My name is Yusuf Ibrahim. Of course, you've been watching The Big Story. Have a good night.